is starting to come together. We've gotten into more unit work, and you can see a lot of young guys I think are going to have an opportunity to play a bunch of football on that. A couple guys that have been nicked up starting to get back healthy, and it's good having them back on the grass. So pleased with a lot of things that we're doing, and obviously looking forward to getting rolling here next week too.
Questions? We'll start with Rob and then Peyton.
Coach, just now that you've had 2 weeks to look at him and be on the grass with him, how do you feel about your depth overall on both sides of the ball this year compared to a year ago this time?
Yeah, just in pure numbers, athletic, movement, skill sets, much deeper, in particular on the defensive side of the football. It's evident in some of the skill spots offensively too. Those young guys that are part of what I'm talking about still have to push and get themselves ready to go play on game day. There's some things that we got to clean up. Game day management, those guys operating, some of those guys on special teams, but feel like we are a much deeper football team than we were a year ago, and you know that's going to play out as you inevitably have some injuries during the season. But I think in particular on the defensive side of the football, you'll see more rotation and a lot of guys playing.
At this point, what unit has been impressing you the most?
I don't think that there's one unit that's impressed me the most. There's things in every unit, every position group that we got to clean up before we get to game day. I think our special teams, there's some really positive things with some young guys on those units. But we got essentially 2 weeks yet before we get to kick off. We'll get into some game prep mode late next week probably. But there's a ton of positives from every position. Some things we got to work on too.
We've heard about a number of young guys, especially freshmen, that have sort of flashed at different times in camp. At this point, what indicators are you looking for? Execution, body language, anything that tells you they're ready to actually play?
Yeah, body language matters. Being able to reset from the previous play and go compete and execute on the next one. This is a game where every play makes a difference for all 11 that are on the field. You're not going to win every battle, but you got to be able to reset to the next play. So the ability to handle that, handle the coaching, not make the same mistake, continuing to progress. We're, I don't know how many, 15 practices in right now. You've seen some of that from those guys. From scrimmage 1 to scrimmage 2, a big tell is just the jump that those guys are able to make and take some of the things that they saw in a real live situation in the first scrimmage and apply it in scrimmage 2. And we've seen that from a bunch of those guys. There'll be some young guys that week 1 are going to play a bunch of minutes. There's going to be some young guys that will continue to earn that playing time as they go through the season too. So it's a constant, race against yourself to become the best that you can.
Josh, a couple of things. Do you like where your receivers are as far as beating press coverage?
It's something that we've been intentional at, dating all the way back to spring ball, being able to work releases against, press coverage. We spend a bunch of time doing that in good on good through our one-on-ones too. Our guys have grown a bunch in understanding how to attack different techniques that they're going to see on the other side of the line of scrimmage. Feel like, the tools that those guys have incorporated into their game, and some of them are a little bit different than others, just in who they are and their body types. Feel like those guys will be able to manage to find a way to win and get off the line of scrimmage quickly.
And have you seen evidence that you might be a better pass rushing team this year?
I do, just from their functional movement, individually, their ability to bend, explosiveness out of their stance, the fundamentals. Coach Garner and Coach Eckler have helped develop all off season. And then some young guys that have come into our program too that we believe as the season unfolds will be able to help us in some of those situations. So the depth, the growth of them individually, some young guys coming in, I do believe that we'll be better being able to apply pressure with the quarterback without using pressures to do that.
fall camp, I know just, kind of the grind leans on you at some point. How are you as
What
a
a
player?
grind. There's nothing better than training camp, though. Man. It's
How
awesome.
are you as a player in fall camp? Did you ever kind of hit that wall and then,
Training camp back then was a little bit different. It was like 12 straight days of 2 days.
Sure. Do you do anything specifically, and how are you as a coach? Do you hit that wall in training camp as a coach?
Yeah, I think just the way we structure it, the player loads that we try to manage with them, when we time up our off days, when the scrimmage days happen, we try to keep them fresh physically, but also on the mental side of it, and make sure that they're intentional. There's a grind and stress to training camp. I think that part of that's necessary just to get yourself prepared for the season. The off season, one thing in June and July, and strength and conditioning, but you need some of the physicality and the stress during the course of training camp to prepare yourself for what the season's going to be like, what those fourth quarters are going to be like. Our practice habits are a lot better than they were a year ago. In some ways, we've been able to play and practice cleaner, and we got to do that here the next couple of weeks, make sure we got everybody healthy when we kick off on Thursday night.
Vince, Patrick, and Rick.
Josh, what kind of progress do you feel like you've made on defense in maybe bottling up some of those mobile quarterbacks that converted on third down last year?
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things to replicate during the course of training camp with quarterbacks not being live. You also want them to stay away from the fray. As quarterbacks' hands are coming through, trying to keep those guys in the red jerseys healthy. In rush integrity, understanding the design of the scheme and what your job is in it. That's the front four guys, some of our twist game. It's also, our pressures. There's times where, we're bringing the linebacker or safety off of the edge. Being able to manage those situations is going to be critical. I did a couple of things that were different this year. There were some opportunities where some of the younger guys, we put them in a live situation with the quarterback. I think those little things will add up to us handling the quarterback in a better way when we kick off.
Coach Hendon and Cedric are probably your two most known commodities. What have you seen from them in camp? Has there been anything that they've done that's even surprised you, even though you've seen what they can do on Saturdays?
Yeah, I don't think surprise would be the right word, just because of how they've worked all off season and their growth and what we're doing. So different than we were a year ago at this point. Just their understanding of what game day is going to look like, how to function inside the system, and obviously they both grew. I do think, through the course of training camp, we've gotten here on the back half. We've been able to push the ball down the field and win more of those one-on-one situations. The consistency of throw and catch between those two has continued to get better. I feel like, they're both playing at a really high level right now.
Coach, back here, along the same lines of what Austin was asking, you talk to the players and they talk about how much better, how much more efficient it is in year two of your system. What about from your standpoint being year two?
Yeah, just the continuity that we've had inside of our building, really our entire staff, young and old coaches coming back. Obviously, Kelsey stepping into the full-time role at the wide receiver spot. But, for our players from the first day that they got back in January, we've been able to just, it's not about how it's going to feel or look inside of the meeting room, the communication piece. It's just been about going and competing and becoming your absolute best. For us as a staff, more in sync, clearer lines of communication, understanding the expectations, the layout of training camp, how that unfolds, being able to grow from year one to year two, and just some of the situational football, how we practice to help our players for it to be more game-like, and be prepared when kickoff happens. So some of those small things that we've changed and grown in pay huge dividends in just the lead up to kickoff and the preparation for our players.
Coach, not discounting practice at all, but when you try to,
Please don't.
You're talking about playing a lot more guys. Is there a point during a fall camp where you go, we just got to see how they react in front of a crowd? And when do you know you're kind of to that point, or do you get to that point?
You play more guys because they've earned it, right? And I do feel like we got more guys that have been earning it, just from our scrimmages and then the way that they've practiced. You're going to find out a lot more about your young guys that haven't done it, when the lights come on, for sure. And is the stage too big? Is it not? Are they able to cut it loose and go, implement and incorporate all the fundamentals, technique, and understanding of scheme, and go make plays. We anticipate, we try to put them in those stressful situations. At the end of the day, game day's its own thing, and so we'll find out a little bit more about those young guys for sure. Our veteran guys that have been playing, you have a pretty good understanding how they're going to react to those situations.
Josh, I was wondering if you had an update on Brew McCoy and with that situation and with the season kind of getting closer and closer, how much of a heads up do y'all need for him to get into the game plan for the first game, knowing that you're uncertain right now?
Yeah, obviously, getting him prepared, being able to rep him, all those things, you'd like that before you start your regular game plan week. You know what I mean? Essentially 7 days before kickoff. That's, best case scenario where you're able to work him and incorporate him and plan for what it's going to look like when we run out of the tunnel. Our administration's, done everything that they possibly can. They've been great throughout the entire process, from the very beginning, and they're still working as hard as they can to give him the opportunity to play.
And y'all still don't know when you might get an answer?
I don't have an answer on that. There's, some things that are out of my control, Brew's control, and our administration's control in this process, and everybody on our side is working as hard as they possibly can to make sure that we come to a resolution as quickly as possible and give a kid an opportunity to go play.
Josh, with Hendon's mobility, a lot of people talk about and focus on him running with the football when he's scrambling. But what about him as a thrower on the run? Where is he in your eyes?
Accurate. He's doing a much better job than early last year, keeping his eyes down the football field. You guys have probably seen it out at practice. We've put a huge emphasis on when he breaks the pocket, it being a pass play, not a run play. And our guys understanding out on the perimeter where they need to get open, understanding space and how to function once the original play call breaks down and you go into the second design of the play. And that can and needs to be a big part of our game. There's going to be times that he pulls it down too, and he's got to do a great job with his feet, take care of the football, and make sure that we're continuing to get to the next set of downs, but also take care of himself too.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Coach will next be available Monday of game week.